Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Ray Lindley, the Executive Director of Array Global Services, and we're really excited to be with you again today. This is becoming a highlight of our weeks, and we're happy to be with you today and see so many familiar faces, and both here on the Zoom link, and we know that we have several people who watch this on Facebook also. So we're really happy to be here today. The whole issue today, and we have two of our very finest experts on the topic, which we'll introduce in just a little bit, but the whole idea around leadership and developing leaders among ourselves, because we're all teachers and we're developing leaders among ourselves. So before I introduce our guest speakers today, I want to introduce again Dr. Jacob Frankum, who is the Associate Executive Director of Array Global. And Jake, you have a few words for us.
Yeah, I wanted to share my screen to start off with. And first of all, just welcome everyone here from all over the world. The special welcome to Fairuz and his Teachers Association who's in Uzbekistan. But we have ministry officials from several different countries that we'd also like to welcome. We'd also like to talk about the services that we provide at Array Global Accreditation. Obviously, one of the cornerstone items that we provide is accreditation services. Please check out the services that we provide to help schools in their improvement process through accreditation. We also provide a certification. So if you have a special program in your school, such as a STEAM or a STEM program, please contact us. We can help you improve that, strengthen that, and we can certify that. We also offer some amazing consulting services. And two of our presenters today are consultants, two of many consultants that we have. We also have a very robust program for professional development that we'd like everyone to participate in online, or you can have us come and visit with you face to face. We also provide a professional educators association, awards and recognition. And I'm going to talk about the awards here in just a minute because we have some special people to recognize. We provide a distance-based education service, external assessments also, because sometimes external assessments get pretty expensive. We have a low-cost solution to help you gather data and help you in your improvement process. Also, academic competitions. Again, this is a great announcement that we're going to have here in just a second. We just had our award ceremony for the students who won this academic contest called Capture Kindness. It was a photography contest where students went around, took pictures of kindness that they saw in their day-to-day life. And then also, 2 months ago, we had a great presentation about our sister school program. We partner schools in Uzbekistan or Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Iraq with schools in the United States that you can have a partnership with and communicate with either Zoom or letter writing, email, and you can even come over to the United States and visit those schools. So I'd encourage you to learn more about our great sister school program. Our next academic contest that we're doing is the Stella Science Fair. It is started. Students can get ready and start submitting at any time. And so I would encourage you to get all of your students engaged in this. We had hundreds and hundreds of entries last year. Students have to do a short video of their science project that they developed, and they submit that to us. But we have some great cash prizes, some great, every student gets a certificate, and it's just a great way for students to interact and see what other students are doing all across the world. We also have a Me and My Service program. You can see Array Global really tries to focus on helping each student develop their character. And so this is a great way for your students to go out and do something nice for other people. If you do 20 hours of community service, your students do 20 hours of community service, by May 10th, they'll get a certificate, and we're doing a service award ceremony that they can be a part of for that recognition. Again, many schools here that are represented are coming from the Middle East, and we know that Ramadan is starting soon. And this would be a great time for students to get in and do some service project during that time too. Our grand prize winner for our Capture Kindness photography contest was Glenn, and he was from the Philippines. I think the first time we've ever had a winner, a grand prize winner from the Philippines. So we'd like to congratulate him and encourage all of you to get your students involved in our academic contest. Please get onto our website and learn more about the services that we provide and how you can specifically engage each one of your students on these different activities. Some other items for the workshop today. Please make sure that if you have a question that you posted in the chat. We're hoping that we'll have some time at the end of the workshop as you are filling out the post-workshop survey. We'll have some time to answer some of your questions that we might not have gotten to during the workshop. And again, so at the end of the workshop, there are certificates provided. They'll be emailed out by Tuesday. But in order for you to receive that certificate, you have to fill out the post-workshop survey. You have to make sure that your name is correct on there, the email is correct, and we will get those processed and send those out to you. It's a great way to get recognized for the work that you are doing to be part of this and to implement some of the strategies that we're providing directly into your schools, directly into your classrooms, directly into your conversations that you're having with your students and your staff on a daily basis. So welcome everyone, and back to you, Dr. Ray.
Well, thank you. And it's, again, let me say it's great to be with you today. And I'm so pleased to introduce the two gentlemen who will be conducting the workshop today. You probably see them on your screen. The first one, Dr. Mike Poe. It says EM Poe. It's I remember that his first name is not Mike, and so that's why the EM. And Mike is the program director for the Educational Leadership Program at Northwest Nazarene University. He actually does internships with students who are becoming principals and administrators around the state. And that's what he does, goes all over the state. Plus he's one of our consultants, as you see. And the other gentleman is Dr. Andy Grover. We really got high-powered people today. Dr. Andy is the executive director of the Idaho Association of School Administrators, which means he works with all school administrators in the state. And so these two gentlemen, when we're talking about leadership, we brought two very outstanding people to you today. So I'm going to turn it over. I think Dr. Andy is going to be the first one to participate. And it appears, Dr. Andy, you need to unmute yourself. And I think we'll be, there we go. So the show is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. It's such an exciting time. And I will tell you that Dr. Mike and I have spent we've done several accreditations over in the Middle East, and with COVID, we certainly miss it. So we're grateful for this opportunity to get to see friends and colleagues from around the world. So thank you, Dr. Ray, for putting this together. Just a little bit about me real quick. I've spent the last 27 years in education. I've filled almost every position you can imagine, from teacher to mentor to coach to assistant principal, and then I was a superintendent for 13 years and oversaw a school system. And currently I serve as the executive director of the Idaho Association of School Administrators. We have roughly 650 administrators throughout the state of Idaho. And that includes everything from superintendents to principals to special ed directors. And we train, we do all kinds of work with them to help build their leadership skills at the state. And then I also work in some of the political parts of the state, working on direction for education for the state of Idaho, which is a whole different conversation than today, but it does make it entertaining. But as we talk about building leadership today, I'm super excited about this. I was able to take a district that was a failing district, and because of the teachers willing to step up and become leaders, we took that district from the bottom 30 percentile in the state of Idaho to the top 25% of the state in Idaho. And that doesn't happen by chance. It happens because people are willing to step up and do the job that needs to be done. So I'm excited to be here with you guys, and I look forward to our next hour of conversation. Dr. Mike.
Thank you, Andy. So I'm Mike Poe. I am the program director of educational leadership here at Northwest Nazarene University. I'm in my 25th year here at the university, and in my 28th year actually teaching in the program and training leaders. especially principals, but also superintendents and directors of special ed. This is my 43rd year in education. That's just, it seems like it's gone very fast, but it's also my 40th year as an administrator of one kind or another. So administration and developing leaders is a passion of mine. It's one of those things that is so important that I'm still doing it. How's that after all these years? I am going to share my screen as well, and we'll get started with our presentation. Also, as a reminder, as maybe some more information, all of the resources that we will talk about today and the links to those resources and so on, Dr. Frankham, Dr. Jake will be sending that as an attachment with your certificate. So you will get a sheet that will have all of the links, the names of the books, all of those kinds of things will come to you with your certificate. So I think that'll alleviate some questions along those kinds of lines. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat room. It may even be something you want to talk to other people that are in the chat room about what we're talking about and those kinds of things. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And we'll get started here, I think. There we go. I'll need to make one other adjustment. All right. So again, this is just kind of the beginning, introduces who we are. The first thing to remember is that teachers are leaders and they need to continually develop their leadership skills. And it's up to us as administrators, those of you that are administrators, that we make sure that we do develop those leaders, that we bring them along so that they can, especially in many of your cases that are in private schools and so on, that they can continue the mission of your school. In the United States, charter schools that fail often fail when the original leader leaves and the new leader that comes in doesn't understand the mission of the school. And so fostering that leadership is something that I feel like we need to do as leaders and to do it well.
And we see all the time in our schools in Idaho, we have 115 school districts, which is about 300 separate schools. One of the issues that we have is that people come in and they'll stay for a period of time and they don't build those leaderships. An example of that is that I was in the school district that I ran for 14 years, 13 years as the superintendent. And had I just left after that, I would have taken all that internal knowledge of how the system ran away with me. But instead, by fostering one of the principals that I had, she replaced me, and it continues to be a high producing school because she knew exactly what we were doing. Teachers knew what we were doing. And it just was a continuation of, when leadership changes. So it's very important that we learn how to make our teachers and give them the opportunities to become leaders and work all the way to the top with that.
And could I just add that since we've all visited schools around the world, one of the biggest issues we see is what Dr. Andy just mentioned, and that is people come and they go, they come and they go. And if we don't develop the leadership with the people who are there, sometimes it's like starting all over again.
Sometimes it's even worse than starting all over again.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I can tell you, we think that it takes us 10 years to recoup after we've had a really awful change in a school district.
Yeah. So one of the issues for a lot of teachers is they don't like the idea of being a leader or a school leader. They think others will think they are bossy, or, who do you think you are? I know with my interns, it's very common for somebody to come up to them and say, as they're working on their administrative certification, oh, you've gone to the dark side. And the reality is, what I tell them is, no, you've gone to the enlightened side. You've gone to the side to a place where you have a lot more knowledge about the school and can actually benefit the school greatly. Many teachers don't see themselves as leaders. They don't understand that what they do every day is leadership within their classrooms, but they don't see themselves as being a leader anyplace else. And so at times it's because they haven't been asked to move into those leadership roles or to develop their leadership skills. And some of them are fearful that if they try to move into leadership in some way, the superintendent or the principal or the administrator is going to be afraid that they're trying to take over and may get rid of them. That's always a concern. I like the job here. I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to overstep my bounds. And so that's one of the things those are a couple of the things that I've had teachers talk to me about every single one of these as we've talked about moving into the leadership programs and so on.
And one of our hopes as we go through this, and one of the takeaways is that you can define what leadership is. And we'll talk about different types of leadership, but knowing that you can be a teacher and be a very high quality leader as well, and be able to move your students forward without upsetting the rest of the leadership group.
Yep. And again, remembering that being a school leader and the school leader are two very different things. And all educators are leaders. Every single one of you is a leader in some way. And that's an interesting piece. So one of the things that we did is we went out and researched what are the commonalities of characteristics for business leaders, for educational leaders, and for teachers. And so, and we looked at things that were kind of universal across the globe. And when you start to compare them and see what the commonalities are, every single one of the 6 categories are in each one of them. So it really does show that effective leaders, many of them already have the same characteristics. Now, how that shows in how they do things may be different, what their products are. For example, adaptability and flexibility in a classroom, figuring out, okay, what went wrong? How do I make it work better? Those kinds of things is different than encouraging risk-taking and utilizing data resources as a building administrator. But they're the same kinds of things, same kind of characteristics, and the same thing on the business leader in terms of encouraging strategic thinking, those kinds of things. Those are all, how do we make changes? How do we adapt? How do we provide flexibility? How do we be flexible? So I thought it was interesting as I went through, I expected to see a couple that didn't go back and forth, but the reality is those characteristics are pretty much common as you go along. And again, these will be in the resource sheet that you'll get, but we went common traits for these. So what it really shows is that in essence, good leaders are good leaders, and their characteristics are nearly universal between business and education. But as current leaders, we need to make sure that we build the skills and the knowledge and so on of our future leaders. And sometimes, and I will confess that I was not always really good at that. I've been significantly better at it since I moved to the university, quite honestly.
And I want to touch on that just for a second, because one of the 3 things that kind of fits into all of those, first of all, every single one of them has a plan and a direction, right? All of them have built a culture. And I think for me, the biggest one on that, they all have communication skills. So being able to make sure that you can articulate what it is you're doing and why you're going the way you're going, and get people on board with you is so important in any of those, in any of the business world or the education world. And we can learn a lot from each other.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll talk more about that communicating ideas and so on a little bit later in the presentation. So let's think about schools a little bit differently maybe than some of you do. I know I've been using this with my leadership students, my principal students and superintendents, and most of them go, yeah, I hadn't really thought of it this way. So really, if you think about the workers in the school being the students, and that the teachers are lower level management, the building admin are middle level management, and central office or the owners are the upper level management. All levels have their roles to do, and they all contribute to the success of the school. One of the things that I used to tell my teachers all the time, and I tell my students now, is that on a minute-to-minute basis, the administrator in the building is the least important person in the building. But if they don't do their job right, the teachers can't do their job right. And part of that job is developing that leadership. So So think about the things that teachers do within their classroom that's leadership, but even also outside of the classroom. Almost everything they do is either leadership or management. It's just whether we recognize it in them, or even if they recognize it in themselves.
And I think it's important also that when we start talking about this, this idea that students are the workers, we really have to resonate with that, because if we're just going to tell students, here's what you need to know. I mean, how many workers in a business are just told what they need to know? If they don't do something to make sure they learn what they need to know and show the fact that, they're getting better and producing something, they're not going to have a job very long. And so as teachers, we need to really learn, how do we get students to be workers? How do we get them engaged in the process of learning and allow them to have enough power, if you will, to do the work and to take ownership of their learning? And as teachers, how do we manage that so that they are willing to take on that role?
So that teachers really do become leaders within to develop those students as leaders as well. Just standing up in front of a classroom and giving out knowledge without having the students work with it and understand how to work with it doesn't really get them very far. So one of the things that building leaders always ask is, so is there any advantage to really doing this, to developing these teacher leaders will it help me? The answer is yes. First of all, as a principal, and I certainly learned this, I can't be everywhere and do everything. And having people who have leadership skills, who are willing to step in and take care of a situation so that I don't have to as the principal, that's a huge benefit. And if I've worked with them and they know how I'm going to do it, and probably will work with that same process, it's very beneficial. Allows the principal to use the strengths of those faculty. Everybody has different strengths, and we're going to talk about strengths in particular in just a few minutes. But it allows the teachers to take care of some problems themselves. It allows the principal to develop leaders who can be responsible when they need to be gone. I know there were times when I was gone out of my building and I needed to have either my assistant principal or one of my teacher leaders be the administrator for the day. And that was wonderful. But then I left at various times. I've had a number of different administrative positions. And so there were times when I was gone, I wasn't there anymore. And so being able to develop those, as we mentioned earlier, being able to develop those relationships and develop those leaders really will help the school be more successful in the long run.
Yeah, and I will tell you also that this doesn't happen overnight, right? As a principal and the owners or the leaders of the schools, they'll make a big overarching plan of here's the direction we're going. And then it takes every group to get there, and sometimes the principal or the superintendent or owner is going to focus on that top part. And then, we really rely on our teachers to do that middle part and down to get students to be able to move and be engaged in their learning to meet those to meet the requirements of the overall goal, because it doesn't do any good for a superintendent owner to set a big goal if we have no chance of reaching it.
Right. And some more, it allows different perspectives and ideas and plans. So one of the things that I talk a lot about with my future leaders and even current leaders, and that is that none of us as leaders have really met any of our own ideas that we didn't like. Hey, we're a leader. They're great ideas. I have great ideas. Everybody ought to think this way. Well, the problem is too many leaders think that their idea is so good it can't be changed, it can't be improved. And that is not true. I became an administrator at 27. Many of my teachers were old enough to be my parents. And quite literally, they taught me that every idea I had, they could improve. And you know what? They were right. So rather than assuming that everybody's going to think about things the same way I do, when I put an idea out to a group, whether it's a class or whether it's students, faculty, or whatever, then it becomes the group's idea. The idea that it's going to morph a little bit, it's going to change, and it will almost always change for the better. And that way no one person has all the best ideas. So being able to get your ideas improved is a great opportunity for developing leaderships and so on. The teachers they can see how immediately how whatever your decision is going to affect, or your idea is going to affect the classrooms, because you're not there all the time. And they'll come up with solutions to the problem pretty quickly. Now, the caveat is that the administrators, we're not abdicating our roles as the building administrators or the leaders. We are saying that we're still going to have to make the final decision, don't get me wrong, but the teachers will feel like they've been listened to. You've listened to their input. You've probably made changes to the plan based on that input. And because of that, your idea, as it has morphed, is going to be substantially easier to implement, and people will follow it. And you can have all the best ideas in the world, but if you can't get buy-in, like we mentioned earlier, from the teachers, it ain't going to happen. Or at least it's not going to happen very well. And so working through this process to begin with will make the process of implementation so much better and smoother down the road.
And I will just add that, in the current job I have, part of the thing I do is I spend a lot of time at our state legislature. And we had on one side of the legislature, we had 780 bills. These are all the greatest ideas from the smartest people in the world, I can tell you. And by the time they get done, not even a third of those become law, because they're taken apart or changed or something's happened to them. And they have to go through 4 different processes before they even make it to the governor's office to be signed into law. So there's lots of checks and balances along the way. And that's what we have to do in education. When I led a school district, I had a leadership team, and I would throw them out and say, look, here's the best idea in the world. And that's what I'd tell them. And I'd say, your job is to make it better and tell me how it will work when it gets to the teacher's level. And so we would plan out anywhere from 1 to 3 years. We never planned out something that was going to take effect the very next day, because it does take time to put these into place. And as you figure out which direction you want to go and put these ideas in place, you want it to have some longevity so that you can actually see that it's made a difference in your students. So as you talk about these different ideas of, okay, how do we build this process and put this leadership in place so that regardless if someone leaves, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a principal, or whether it's a superintendent, the process is in place and we have enough leadership coming through to continue that direction to better help our teachers.
And that's the goal, help our teachers, because they're the ones working with the students. So you will not run across very many people that just automatically seem to have all of the leadership skills that they need. Being a leader is generally a learned activity, a learned skill, and there's lots of skills to learn. So what can a principal do to encourage teacher leader development? Well, we have some ideas. How's that? So one of the pieces that's a strong piece in my program, and that is that you adopt the role of being a servant leader, that you're the one who helps the others succeed. In the United States right now, if the administrators aren't servant leaders and helping their teachers succeed, the administrator is the first one that gets fired, to be bluntly honest with you. And so the idea that my success isn't because of the title in my role. My success is because my students are succeeding and the teachers are the ones who are working with them. So teachers, what do you need? How can I help you? What do we need to do? Those kinds of things are key in terms of being a servant leader. Appropriate positive relationships with your staff. You need to develop those. Now notice I said appropriate and positive. The last thing you want to do is to put a teacher in the position of being the principal's pet, or their favorite or something like that. You want to treat people equally, but develop relationships that are positive, that they really can be beneficial to you and to the school and so on. Seeking out opportunities for others, recognizing, oh, here's something that I could have one of these teacher leaders worked on. Here's a committee they can chair, or here's an activity they can run. Those kinds of things that help the teachers come along as leaders. Be willing to work through difficult situations. The developing leaders you're working with, they will make mistakes. Guess what? We all make mistakes. But being willing to address those mistakes in a way that you help them grow, as opposed to just saying, well, that was stupid. Why did you do that? That doesn't work well. But here's what happened, asking the questions. What would you do to change this? How did it go the way you wanted it to go? Those kinds of questions work well. Welcoming appropriate suggestions and changes. Giving credit to those around you for the successes. You know, it's kind of human nature that when we're a little bit involved with something that went well, to say, well, look what I did. Well, the reality is it wasn't just you. It was all the other people around as well. And so that giving credit to those people for their successes is important. But if there's an issue at the school, quite honestly, don't blame others. You're the one that has to deal with it. The buck stops with you. And so, and that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
And I want to touch on a couple things on here, if I can jump in.
You bet.
One, we had a question in there on how to, hand out some of this leadership. And when you set up your class, or when you set up, how you're going to build leadership, you're going to have to set it up in groups, because, even it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. Sometimes you have 5 students, sometimes you have 70 students. And so trying to decide how you manage your leadership within that class. And remember, if we go back to the students or the workers, there are also students that can also be leaders. So if you break up the group into different sections and have smaller groups working together, you can certainly work around those different groups a whole lot easier than trying to address all, 50 or 60 kids at one time. And again, as we empower folks, as we empower our leaders, they take on more, and they've got to be able to take risks so that they become better. Because not everything works. Sometimes you think, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and you try it and it doesn't work. And we have to be able to say, okay, why didn't it work? Right. And then be able to be open for the conversation. I can tell you, while I've had a lot of success, I've had times where things weren't successful, and you have to be able to say, okay, what happened? And you have to have your teachers be able to say, well, this didn't work because of this, and then you have to be open enough to say, okay, how do we fix it? How do we make it better? And that's where that communication and really those relationships that you build have to come from. And as Dr. Mike said, we have to take accountability for the mistakes we make as well. If you start saying, well, that wasn't my fault, that was, teacher so-and-so or whatever, you lose your leadership ability very quickly. You have to be able to say, what, I made that mistake. This is why I did it, and it didn't work, and now we're going to fix it and move on. And if you take ownership in what you do, again, you're just going to be able to build better relationships, and you're really going to be able to have success with your kids, because they're going to make mistakes too. They're just learning, and we want them to learn. We want them to try new things. And so having that ability to be able to make some mistakes within that, and we're talking academic mistakes and things like that.
And I have to interject here. Our ego is involved, our egos. And so much of the time we fail to be the kind of leaders that we need to be, because what Dr. Andy just said, we have to be willing to put our ego on the table and say, this is for the good of all of us. And I still think of that pyramid that I've used in a lot of cases, and it's the same thing happens with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The very top of the pyramid is the student. That's the most important person in the school, and everybody else, teachers, administrators, parents, school boards, everybody else, accreditors, we all support going up there. And if we are doing our jobs, and I'm hearing you guys say this, if we're doing our jobs, it's going to support the people above us, not be in command. And we're at the top, listen to what I have to say, be quiet, sit down. We have to be willing to put our egos on the line.
Yep. Well, and that brings us to the very last one on here. And there can be lots. This is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but part of it is being that positive role model. In other words, if your role model is barking at people and giving them orders all the time, then that's the way the people around you are going to assume that leaders are. But if you're a leader who develops those relationships, who provides the resources, who asks the questions, now you're being a positive role model for those leaders that are looking up to you and that will follow you. And that's, and quite honestly, that's why I've stayed at the university for 25 years. I love being able to work with those emerging leaders, most of whom are teachers currently and looking to move into administration, but working with them and being able to be a positive role model for them, with not only with the things that I do in my classes, but also in terms of how I work with their supervisors and how I work with them.
And we all struggle a little bit with, wanting to be the smartest guy in the room. That's part of the game we play. But I think the other part is that as you become a leader and we build this leadership, you have to give your folks someone they can talk to, right? And it might not be the administrator. It might be another group of teachers. I can tell you in my job today, I call Dr. Mike all the time and ask him questions, even though our worlds are so different in what we're doing,
Right.
Because he has the experience and also we have a relationship to where we can talk to each other about some pretty strong things that are happening around the state, even if they're happening with some of our leaders that need help. I can reach out to a handful of people and say, hey, can you give me a hand on this? Because sometimes they don't want a boss or someone in an authority figure to come in and try and tell them how they should straighten up or how they should better teach. Sometimes they need that colleague that they have that relationship with that can talk them through, hey, this is how we can get better at this. So as we build these, as you build your teachers up, also give them an opportunity to collaborate and work with other teachers. And if it's possible, maybe in multiple schools, but at least within your school, give them that group of people they can talk to.
So we talked about what administrators can do, but the teachers need to take an active part in this as well. So part of the situation is that if you want to be in a leadership role, and maybe even if you're not sure, quite honestly, I was never going to be an administrator, and I've been one for 40 years now. Somebody recognized some leadership stuff in me that I didn't and brought me along. And that's the goal, I think, should be for all leaders. But study leadership. Just as you study about how to become a better teacher, study about how to be a leader, what to do in different situations, talk to other people. I belong to a Facebook group called the Principal's Desk. I love being in there because some of them are new administrators and they're asking questions and I can respond. But sometimes I learn, not sometimes, a lot of the times I learn from them about what's going on in the schools currently, because it's been 25 years since I had a building of my own. And so things have changed drastically in many, many ways, but I've been able to keep up with those because I still study leadership. I still look at the schools and those kinds of things. Excuse me. That is not what I wanted to do. There we go.
Another part of that is as you start working through these things, a good leader asks lots of questions, right? Because if you want to find the answers, you have to be willing to ask all types of questions and find out, why does the teacher next door to me, why do their students seem to be engaged and involved in the lessons and learning so much more than in my class where I might have students running around or misbehaving or something like that. And being able to go to those teachers and say, hey, what's the difference? What are you doing in your classroom? And ask those questions and working with those around you. Or maybe if you're that teacher that works pretty well and you can see your neighboring teacher who's really struggling, right? You can't just go in and say, look, you're doing this all wrong because they think they're doing it, the best that they can. You have to be able to have that communication piece and that relationship with those other teachers to say, hey, can I help you with something, or find an opportunity to talk to them to help build those leaders, because we need, leadership and being able to control your classrooms and move those students forward is what this is all about.
So one of the things that I firmly believe is that no teacher and no administrator gets up in the morning, looks in the mirror and says, I'm going to go to school today and do a terrible job. That's not why we're in teaching and educating and leading. They're doing the best they can with what they have right now. So it may be our responsibility to do the training with them, to show them some other ideas, or have them go watch other people. And leadership, being able to have a leader that's maybe struggling a little bit, to go talk with somebody, a leader that's really strong in the areas they're struggling in, utilizing those resources. Becoming a servant leader. Teachers, the same situation as the principals. They need to be a servant leader to you. You need to be a servant leader to your students. And as you begin that process, it'll flow into the process when you become a leader as well. And knowing who you are, reflection is key for improvement. And we're going to talk about this a little more depth here in a moment, but you really need to understand who you are and be comfortable with that. The positive relationships, and again, accept that you will make mistakes, and those mistakes, you can use those mistakes to grow. It's going to happen.
And one of the biggest ways we grow is knowing what our weaknesses are, right? And we all have them. We're all really good at some things, and there's other things we're not very good at. But the beauty is that when you have groups of teachers, you have people that are good at the things you are bad at, and you can learn from each other if you're willing to do that. And the only other thing that I'll add on that last slide is that we have to be willing to give recognition to those that are doing the job, right? Because if you always are the one saying, oh, well, this is me that did this, it's me, it's all about me and the things that I've done, you will push those other folks away from you. And so, I learned early on too, the more recognition you give to those folks that are working with you or being leaders, the more it comes back on you, and you never have to say a thing, right? You just have to keep giving that positive feedback to those around you, and letting them have some of the successes, because they're doing the work, and a good leader can push that out and understand that they're the ones that need that recognition.
Let's talk a little bit about understanding who you are, both whether you're a teacher, an administrator, in business. It doesn't make any difference what role we play. We really need to understand who we are. And some of the reasons, if we don't understand what motivates us and why we do the things that we do, we'll use excuses. Well, I didn't know that, or it's just the way I am, which causes more problems than anything else, to be honest with you. But it allows us to understand our preconceptions about people and situations, and to understand where our errors in thinking are, and to recognize them. I'm going to spend some time on that here in just a slide, in the next slide. But knowing about the people around us also helps us understand what are their preconceptions about things, and how are they probably going to react, and allows us to communicate better to those of us working with us. I had an issue when I was the department chair here at the university, a faculty member that was just causing me all kinds of grief. And I had them do a personality inventory, actually leadership inventory. And when I looked at their results, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I just needed to include them in the conversation earlier, and they quit being this person that was always no, to, oh, yeah, that is a good idea. But I had to communicate with them earlier than I had been. So I had to learn about how to work with that particular staff person. So let's talk, and if you go to this particular link right here, it will actually take you to a page that has literally, 15, 20 different kinds of leadership inventories. There's a whole industry around training leaders and leadership inventories and how to do things. But when you're taking these inventories, one of the things that's imperative is that you answer the way you are, not the way you want to be. And that's with any inventory. Answer the way you really are, not how you think you want to be, or the way, well, this is the answer they want. That's not the way to take any kind of inventory. So one of the things that I use in my classes in my program is Clifton Strength Finder. I like it because it talks about strengths too often we talk about somebody's weaknesses and we try to build those weaknesses up rather than letting them work in their strengths, which they can have much more success at much faster at that particular situation. So, and the other thing about Clifton Strength Finders is that it has literally been used millions of times all over the world. It's not just a United States or just a Europe or whatever. It literally has been gone, and I'll show you some resources on that here in a little bit. So here's my top 5. Positivity. Those of you that have met me and know me, nobody disagrees with this one that knows me. Ideation. Can I come up with ideas all day long? Strategic. Do I know how to plan things and do things? Absolutely. Context. I love to know the history because I know that history is going to influence the future. And adaptability. You know, a lot of people have trouble with change. It's just part of my life. I changed schools 14 times by the time I was a sophomore. I had to learn how to be adaptable. But let's look at just the positivity thing for my number 1. So in Strength Finders, they have what they call balconies and basements. And the way to think about it is that balconies are the positive aspects of whatever your strength you're talking about. So for me, for the balconies and positivity, enthusiastic, lighthearted, energetic, generous with praise, optimistic. Most people would probably describe me in that way. However, there's always the other side, what Strength Finders calls the basement. So if you're too much this way, or if you don't follow through with things, then you're with positivity, then you're insincere. They just always say nice things. They don't really mean them. Well, you have to be able to show that you do mean those things. People may look at you as being naive. And quite honestly, I will confess at times I probably am naive about certain things that I'm really positive about. It's something that I understand about myself, and I'm willing to work with that. People may think that you're superficial. Well, yeah, he did it here, but he does that to everybody and it really doesn't care. Well, yeah, you need to develop that piece that also shows that you care. And Pollyanna is from a book, and the idea is that, oh, everything will work out okay. I don't need to plan it all that well. It'll be all right. That's kind of Pollyanna. Well, that's not true. And I've had to learn that because, I'll plan something. And quite honestly, my wife and I talked about this even before we got married. She's the, okay, what's the plan person? And we've worked that out. We love it, have it that way. And she'll ask me, so when is this going to happen? Who's going to be involved? What kinds of things are going to happen? And I'm grateful for that, because if I count too much on my positivity, then things don't always work out as well as they should. So understanding yourself, both the positive things that are in your characteristics, but also the things that you need to watch out for and be aware of. Those are things that really good leaders understand about themselves and are willing to admit both the positive things and utilize those, but also understand the possible negative kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think it's really important as well. I used a strength finder, and we're going to talk about that as well. It's a different one than the Clifton one. And, your leadership is built as you grow and the experiences you have. So for example, I spent 6 years in the United States Marine Corps. I have a different outlook on how to get from point A to point B. And sometimes, there can be baggage left along the side while I get there. And so, again, if I didn't know what my strengths were in moving forward and how I look at success, you can cause a lot of problems with trying to build those leaders around you, because not everyone came from my background. Not everyone has the same vision that I have. And that's why these strength finders are so important, because as you address what you're good at, and know how to build on that so you become better, but also know that there's areas that, there's others that can help fill those gaps. makes you a better leader. And again, as Dr. Poe said, or Dr. Mike said, just knowing who you are and knowing how you move forward helps build those relationships around you. Because without those relationships, I don't care how good of a leader you are, you're not going to make it on your own. There's too many different types of people and leaders out there. You've got to build those relationships, and you've got to build them on a positive note.
So in terms of the program that I run here at Northwest Nazarene University, these aren't all of the materials that we use by any stretch of the imagination, but these are some really good places to start. If you are an administrator, they'll help you become better. If you're looking at becoming an administrator, it'll help develop those strengths as you move through. So Whitaker's book called What Great Principals Do Differently, 20 Things That Matter Most. Again, all of this information will be on the resource sheet that you get with your certificate. The New Principals Field Book, Strategies for Success, Mentoring Beginning Teachers. The big piece with mentoring beginning teachers from my mind is that it talks a lot about how do we do new teacher induction? How do we treat them? What do we tell them? How do we set them up for success? Because too many of us, and I was not very good at it as a principal, to be honest with you, we don't set people up for success. We just kind of, here's your keys, here's your books, have a nice day. And that's just not the way to induct teachers into your building. The Strength Finders, you'll notice that there are 2 links there, but Strength Finders the Gallup Strength Finders, the Clifton Strength Finders, they have offices all over the world. One of them, for those of you that are in the Middle East, is in Abu Dhabi. They have an office there. They have an office in London. They have an office in Berlin. So they really do use this process all over the world. I think there's also an office in the Philippines. So, I mean, there's lots of different locations for that. And then if you want just a fun read, but also has lots of things to talk about in terms of being a good leader, is this book by Nyla Connors. I know Dr. Connors. I've been in a number of workshops with her. It says, if you don't feed the teachers, they eat the students. The Guide to Success for Administrators and Teachers. And it is so true. But she uses it in humor to talk about the things that we as leaders need to do to help support our teachers. So when you look at everything that a great leader does, the overriding characteristic is they develop positive relationships with those around you. Those relationships are really what's going to make or break your school, to be honest with you. So we want to kind of close with situation. This is from the Facebook page I told you about, the Principal's Desk. And teachers love admin who roll up their sleeves to help, really listen, who are present in the classrooms, in the hallways, the cafeterias, in the lunchrooms, in all those places. They value teachers' time, both their planning time, their meetings after school. They support and encourage teachers. They check on them and they check in with them. And most of all, they have their back. So that's kind of that is the end of the presentation. You can reach Dr. Andy Grover at his email address, and those will also be on the resource sheet, as well as my email address. So it has been a pleasure being with each and every one of you. If there's some questions or so on that we can answer, I'll let Dr. Jake take care of kind of moderating those for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Andy, Dr. Mike. I've been watching the comments as they've come through. And this is a topic that has been not only needed, but well received. So I'm excited about the fact that people are asking the right questions. And sometimes it's not knowing the answers, but knowing how to answer the right questions. I'm reminded that the average leaders raise the bar on themselves. The good leaders raise the bar for others. And the great leaders inspire others to raise their own bar. And that's really where we will go with this whole idea of leadership. Sometimes people shy away from this idea about being a leader, but whether we like it or not, the business we are in, we're all leaders. And so thank you so much. And Dr. Jake, I think you've got a few things to say, and then I'll conclude it in just a moment. We'll allow a little bit of time for questions and answers.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Ray, and especially a big thanks to Dr. Mike and Dr. Andy for this presentation. It's been illuminating. I've been administrator for a number of years, but listening to this, I've been able to take some items that I'm going to be able to take into my school starting on Monday. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about leadership and really inspire teachers and educators from all over the world. We have a couple hundred people with us today. We have several people on Facebook and a lot on Zoom. So welcome to everyone. We'd like to make sure everyone knows about our workshop that's going to be taking place April 16th. It's going to be at 9 o'clock Saudi time again. And it's going to be presented by Shauna Jessen, and she's going to be talking specifically about teaching tools for math. And this is we got this topic directly because of your feedback in the surveys and in communication with us. Many of you have been talking about how can we improve our math teaching skills. And I know there are many elementary teachers, many math teachers, science teachers that are teaching math. And there's going to be strategies, even if you don't teach math, there are going to be strategies that she's going to talk about that you can implement right into your classroom. So we're really, really excited about that. Oh, I thought I was sharing my screen. There it is. So make sure that you're signed up for this and that you put that on your calendar and that you make sure that you attend. Also, I'm going to be posting as soon as Dr. Ray is done with his final words. I'm going to post information about our survey, the post-workshop survey that you have to fill out. You have to put in the right email address. Make sure you write in your name correctly, and the certificates will be mailed out on Tuesday. Also, I will include the newsletter that we just sent out. Please make sure there's some good information in there to help you in your improvement process as a teacher and as a school. Please get onto our Facebook and our YouTube and our Twitter and our Instagram, and that you follow us because we put out great information all the time. Dr. Ray, back to you.
Thank you all so much. Let me just conclude this by my Farouz statement, and it is this. The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets other people to do the greatest things. That's the great leader. So thank you all so much.